And good evening. Welcome to Now You See TV. I'm your host, Jake Grant, and we have an awesome show for you guys. I am pleased to welcome Rico Cortez on to Now You See TV. How you doing, Rico?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, I'm really excited. We've been wanting to have you on the show for quite some time, and tonight we are going to be talking the treasures of the temple. Now, this is a area of study that Rico has spent probably countless hours diving into the Word, and you can find his ministry, Wisdom and Torah Ministries. What's the specific website for that, Rico?
WisdomandTorah.com.
All right, and tonight I'm really excited because this topic of the temple is sometimes really glossed over, and I know growing up, sometimes we viewed either the tabernacle or the temple as kind of boring. There's not really much there for us, but I know you're going to bring a new light to this topic, and it might drive people to their Bibles, which is what our purpose here on Now You See TV is to drive people to the Word and to really just dive into these topics. And so welcome to the show, and let's get started. So the treasures of the temple.
Man, Treasures of the Temple. That's the title of the course that I do every year in Orlando, Florida. Treasures of the Temple. We're doing now the second temple conference in 3 years. This is 102. We're going to have Joseph Good, Dina Dye, and Ryan White, and myself. And we're going to be doing an intensive course for 4 days, 5 teachings each, and 1.5 hours each teaching based on temple location, temple function, language of the temple, of the New Testament temple language, and things like that. And like you said, temple is something that we are commanded to learn, and we do not. We are out of focus learning all the stuff, and people don't realize that this is a command for the house of Israel. This is something that I'm trying to encourage people to consider, because Ezekiel, I'm going to read it right off the get-go, and this is what motivates me to study the temple. Ezekiel chapter 43, verse 10 to verse 12 says, "Son of man, describe the temple to the house of Israel, that they may be ashamed of their iniquities, and let them measure the pattern," which is a tavnit. A pattern means a blueprint, which, by the way, you cannot change the blueprint of a building. Only the architect can change it. And in this case, the architect is the creator. So anybody changes location, changes blueprint of the temple, they are messing with a called holy things, and the temple is holy thing. And it continues in verse 11. "If they are ashamed of all they have done, make known to them the design of the temple, its arrangements, its exits, entrances, its entire design, and all its ordinances, and all forms, and all its laws. Write it down in their sight, so that they may keep it, whole design and all its ordinances to perform it." It says, this is the law of the temple. "The whole area surrounding the mountaintop shall be most holy. Behold, this is the law of the temple." And this is these are the verses that prophetically the book of Ezekiel prophesied in regards to, the temple. And we are commanded as the house of Israel to study it, yet is glossed over or neglected. Or people who have not done any research, they begin to teach it in a really irresponsible manner. And this is something that I've been researching for 20 years, and I still don't know. I'm still learning and searching, and I never proclaim to know everything. I'm just searching and sharing what I've learned up to date. But I'm going back to Israel, by the way, January 23rd. I'm going to be there in 13 days with my teacher for 13 days, but 12 days in the land studying, and every day. So there's a lot to learn in not enough time.
Yeah. With this topic of the temple, I know the temple was designs that were given to David and then built by Salomon. And then, of course, the tabernacle was designed after a heavenly pattern by Moses, and those God kind of empowered. So in comparing the two, I know you've studied extensively into both, but are there parallels, or are there different messages between the tabernacle and the temple itself?
No, I mean, they're the same. The blueprint, what happened, it was enlarged in size, clearly. But the tabernacle was a blueprint given to Moses, and then the the temple was given as the pattern to David. So the function of it is really what matters. The size, like for example, many people don't realize that when they came back from Babylon, Nehemiah, Zerubbabel, Ezra, those people, they begin to build the temple as according to Ezekiel's measurements. And some of the buildings, they maintain the same measurements all the way from the first temple period. That has not changed. Now, the size of the millennial Ezekiel's temple is quite big. And that's why they never really finished it, because they were kind of confused about some of the measurements. So they said, okay, so we know then that this is coming in the prophetic. It's in the future. And this is why we know that the third temple is not really built, because the second temple was actually a remodeling of the return from the exiles during the time of Zerubbabel, and then later on when Ezra and Nehemiah showed up to Jerusalem. So we're talking about the function, and the pattern still has not changed. Still has a holy of holies, holy place, and it has the area of the altar. Things were added later, in the sense of functionality, the size of the buildings, but the functions were always the same. So just the lack of understanding of the temple function. We focus so much on either location or that it is, that it isn't, and in reality, none of us really understand. And this is something we're searching slowly. Like, let me give you an example. In Matthew 24, verse 1, and if you like, I would like to show you. I'm going to read you the verse, and then I'm going to show you a picture, okay, of the verse. But when people read the verse, they're not focusing on the buildings. They're focusing on the retaining wall. And this is only one of many things that people take out of context. Watch. It says in Matthew 24, verse 1, it says, then Yeshua went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him to show him the buildings of the temple. So clearly he was not outside of the walls of the temple. He was outside the temple. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to share the screen here. And I want to show you what I'm saying. When we talk about the buildings of the temple, this is what you get. Okay, so you have this particular. Can you see that? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I can see that.
Can you see it? Okay. Okay. Perfect. So what you have here, these are the buildings of the temple. This one in the corner, if you see the cursor right in here. That one right here is called the Beit Osrot. This is where the headquarters for the Levitical guard was from. Then Beit Aptinas, this is where the laver was inside, which is south of the altar, also the Sanhedrin Council. Then the one in the northeast is called Beit Hanitsot. This is where they used to keep some of the implements where they used to kill the animals north of the temple. Beit Hamoket, which is in the northwestern part of it. This was where the priests used to live, right underneath the building there, and some of the animals were kept there for the sacrifices. These are the buildings. They are all kinds of buildings in between, and the buildings, and there's the one in the back that is not shown here that is called the Parba, right? Now, when Yeshua is leaving the temple, everybody assumes he's outside of the walls completely. Says he leaving the temple. Well, the area is 37 acres. Okay, at the time of the first century, second temple period, right? Are you with me? So what happens is Yeshua is leaving the temple in here. By the way, he could not go into this area. He can only be in this area because, and the court of Israel sit in here, but he could not go into the platform of the altar because he was not a Kohen according to the sons of Aaron. So he's leaving this area, walking somewhere out here in the court of the Gentiles. It doesn't say he was leaving outside the temple proper. So the verse in context, in temple geography, is talking about the temple buildings. How big were they? How wide were they? How tall were they? What were their functions? By these buildings right here that you see on the cursor, those were the bathrooms. They have bathrooms. It used to be called the seat of dignity, according to Mishnah language. So as you can see, there's a lot of buildings in there that people don't think about. I mean, you see this right in here that I'm putting my cursor on? That is the Nicanor Gate. You know how big that thing was? That was 50 cubits high, like 13 stories high. That's huge. The temple building alone was 22 stories high. That's a 22-story building. So Yeshua is dealing with the temple buildings. Now, let me take you to another one. I want you to go and check this out. It's going to be kind of cool. I'm going to show you the retaining walls, or the walls from the original temple, then the addition from the Hasmonean family, and then later addition to the Herodian time. This is very important. So watch this. So what we have here is Solomon's temple. That's what it looked like. Then the Hasmonean added. And then later on, Herod added to the west, to the south, and to the north. See, so what you see today, if we go by the cursor here, is actually the extension that Herod added to it. By the way, you see this yellow? Make sure you give me some feedback so I know you're getting it. You see the yellow right here? That represents the original western wall during the time of Salomon and the Hasmonean family.
Yes.
The Maccabees. Did you know that I stood on that wall? Still there. It's actually to the bottom of the ground. The Muslims left the wall. They just built around it.
Wow.
So now you have from the yellow all the way to the western wall where it says extension right here. That's where the modern day western wall is today. That is not part of the original 50 by 50. So if I take you to the next slide, we have now, this is the walls what Herod added, the wide one. So we have all three. We have the original square right here. That's a 500 by 500. This is Solomon's temple. The little one here is the Hasmonean family. They added to the south. And then Herod added to the south, to the west, and to the north. Now, do you see this place right in here in the north part right there?
Yes, I do.
That is called the Valley of Bethesda. And you know that Pompey, when he conquered the northern part during the time of the Seleucid period, the time of the Hasmonean period, he filled up part of this moat. It was a dry moat. It was 60 feet by 250 feet. And he dried up an area, he filled up an area of this so he can take over the northern wall of the temple. Then later on, Herod, he made it a whole flat area. He utilized Roman technology, and he basically expanded to the north, to the west, and to the south, and he filled it in with dirt. So he flattened it, and he put deep trenches. So I'm going to go again. I'm going to let it play out. I want you to notice the Valley of Bethesda. It's a big area right there to the north. I know exactly the area. See, this is the type of stuff people don't want to study. But then they're moving the temple to the city of David without the proper archaeological, topographical, geographical evidence. So the Valley of Bethesda right here, this is what Antonia would be. You see? So it was quite big. It did not encroach on the temple area. This is the temple area. So you could have the Bend, you can have Fort Antonia, and you can have the temple on the Temple Mount and would not be encroaching on one another. So you see the blue right there?
Yes.
The blue are the cisterns. Those are water cisterns on the Temple Mount. There's over 40 of them. Now, if you're there, I want you to notice something right here. Let me go to the next slide. Now we're looking, oh, sorry, I'm going to the wrong place. Right here. All right. Now this slide is really important because let me know if you're with me, okay? Because I don't want to go too fast. I get all excited about this stuff.
Yeah, I'm right along with you.
Okay, so the wall where I have my cursor is the east. That's the east. This corner where it says the Bend, that's the original Solomonic original one. Then the Hasmonean added from that place south to here. And then from there, Herod added more to the south. Today, you can go to the eastern wall and the south part of the eastern wall, and you can see the bend on the wall and the seam where the Hasmoneans added and where the Herod added to the wall.
Wow. I didn't
And
know.
you know what's really cool is that you can tell the difference by the way the finish of the wall of the stones. See, the stones, they have finish. The Herodian stones, they have a finish on the stones. The Persian stones have a different finish. It's like time periods. You know, when you go to New England, you can see different types of construction, and you know that some of it go back all the way to the colony times, you know, the times of colony and the architecture. I've been to Europe, and I go to some places in Canada or New England, and I feel like I'm in Europe. You know what I mean? Because it relates the period and the time.
Um,
Well,
just real quickly, go. Are these walls visible? How much are people able to see? How much is beneath the ground from what you've seen?
actually, what you see now is probably like 40 feet above. It's the middle of the wall. They're still like 40 feet below it. That the Muslims they added to, they filled in. So what you're looking at, even the Western Wall, you know, when people go pray at the Kotel,
Yeah,
that's like 40 feet above the ground level where it was in the first century.
wow.
Some
So
people
those
don't realize.
all walls.
But you can still see all the walls. I mean, they've been built up. So what we have is lack of evidence. Now, you see this, the offset, you see this right in here?
Yes.
This is a huge, huge discovery by Benjamin Mazar and by Eilat Mazar and all the archaeologists. They know about this. What you see here is called the offset stone. And I took a picture of it. Actually, I was there, and I took a picture on the eastern wall. And the offset stone, what it is a marker. Is a marker that Nehemiah put there when he came back and he rebuilt the walls of Jerusalem. He left a marker, a stone on the ground, that the finish is like the Persian finish in honor of the Persian king who let them come back to Israel.
Cyrus.
And that was the most northern part of the northern wall. That means that from that stone from the east, directly lined to the west over here, you can basically pinpoint exactly where the northern wall used to be during the time of Salomon.
Wow.
And anything north of that was actually added by Herod. So if anyone goes to Jerusalem and they just go around the walls itself, you know, all this stuff, but they don't do that. So again, this is the struggle we're having. We're talking about theory. Go ahead.
This is some really shocking information. This is a great picture right here the one you were just on, to kind of demonstrate the Jews today who are praying at the Western Wall. Is this information that they are unaware of? Do they believe that?
No, they know about it. I mean,
okay,
all this research has been done. Listen, you go to Israel and you tell to a guide, you tell any guide in Israel, oh, by the way, do you believe the city of David was the place where the temple was? They'll laugh in your face. There's not any credible archaeologist who studies the temple. Not one of them ever say the temple was in the city of David.
Huh?
It's ridiculous. I mean, I mean, just the topography alone. Have you had a chance to go to Israel?
I have not.
Man, I hope you have an opportunity to go. Just the topography alone, when you stand on the south and you start looking to the north, oh my God, if you put the temple in the city of David, or even in the Ophel, where the southern steps are, it will have to be the size of a 6-inch cubit. It's like you're dealing with J.C. Penney's. That's ridiculous. And the temple could hold up to 250,000 people. So again, you know, like for example, you see the arch, Robinson's arch right here?
Yes.
Okay. I have a picture in which back in the late 1800s, they took a picture of a particular guy sitting on top of that arch right there. Now we're all the way like 40 feet below it. And Charles Warren, he dug in there, and also Conrad Schick and Wilson. They're the experts. You know, they know this in Israel. I mean, right now, the Western Wall, if you follow my cursor, the Western Wall, this is the wall. The Western Wall will be right now. This is where they pray, around here. Right in here. You see this arch, Wilson's arch?
Yes.
And that's where they go in. They have a synagogue in here, right in the arch. That's how high they are above level.
Wow.
So when you take the Western Tunnel and you go see it's called the Rabbinico Tunnel, or the Western Wall tour, Then you drop all the way down here, and you see all of the courses or the big stones that are down there by the trenches, just like Josephus says. So again, you got to study Lee Ritmeyer. You have to study Ehud Netzer. You have to study Benjamin Mazar, Elat Mazar, Joseph Good. You have to study Warren, Wilson, Conrad Sheik, Condor, and all these guys, Palestinian Exploration Fund. And all these people that have all the evidence, and the guy who's proponing the temple to be in the city of David, study the subject matter for 6 months. How about that?
Yeah, I guess
makes no sense.
It would be frustrating for the supposed experts to have not put in their homework.
Well, that's the thing. You know, it's just, you know, listen, I don't want anybody to believe me. I just want you to do the research.
Yeah.
Go back and do research and get with people who really can give you the information. Look, right here, I have another picture of the extensions and everything. I do agree, however, with the theory that that Fort Antonia was not very small in the corner. I agree with that. But look at all the area. This was huge. You can definitely put 4,000 or 5,000 soldiers in there, you know, or even 500 soldiers in the cohort, not a problem. That area is huge. But people don't take into account the topography. You see, when you read Josephus, it tells you about the dry moat. It's called the Valley of Bethesda. So you have the Theropian Valley right here where my cursor is. Then you have the Valley of Bethesda, and then on the other side, on the east, you have the Kidron Valley. These were natural defenses for the temple, which is the square right here. But then Herod, he built the retaining walls in order to give better defense. What did he do? He used already the Theropian Valley. It's already a deep valley. He just added a wall for more defense, right? And then here he filled it up. So he expanded on the north, and he built Fort Antonia to honor his buddy Mark Antony. It's not a problem. As long as it's not encroaching on the 500 by 500 of the temple, we're good.
Mm-hmm.
This is the holy area. This is where the temple stood. Anything around it, you're good. Just don't build another altar, another temple. But, you know, it doesn't matter. Again, this is some of the topics and some of the things that we need to talk about. So you see from the top, you like these pictures really help out, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think illustrations help us all along.
Yeah. And the numbers that you see here, these are the cisterns. These are the water cisterns. Now, do you know that this particular one right here, the number 3, it's called the Great Sea? It could give you 3 million gallons of water.
Wow.
You know, this is just one of them. They have conduits. Like you see number 28 right here, the cistern. It had a fixed well. It's called the well of the Pomegranate. The Muslims still know about it. They call it by the Arab name, but they didn't really change the name. They just changed it from Hebrew to Arab, but still the same name.
Now, of these cisterns, which are there any that are active, that are being able to be tapped into? How are they just covered?
They'll all be used today. Let me show you one real quick. Hold on a minute. This is one of them, okay? I want to show you this. You're going to be blown away by this one. See if it's here. It's supposed to be here. There we go. Watch this. What you see in the screen, look at the little guy. This was a picture drawn by William Crimea Wilson from the archives of the Palestine Exploration Fund. By the way, the whole fund was, it's not like they were Palestinians. They were English. It's an English organization made up of royal engineers from England. And they sent people to Israel to help them with the water, but it was an excuse to do digging in Jerusalem. And look how big this thing is.
Wow. Yeah, that's
this is over 736 feet circumference. Measure the cistern that found that it was 736 feet. I mean, you can provide up to water you can provide on this one. Whoops, I'm going to the wrong one again. See, it's 36 feet high, 12,000 metric cubits of water. That's 3 million 170,064 gallons of water. This was discovered in 1887 by Conrad Sheik. Then Barclay came a few years later, and a year earlier, I'm sorry, and he measured it. These people went into it and measured them. This is not speculation. These people went in and measured them. They were royal engineers and architects, and they took care of all the stuff. And there's over 40 of these.
Wow, it
not
really
all
kind
the same size, clearly.
the reason why they would have built the temple in this location, in a way, like there's so many resources, and it seems to be that they put that 500 by 500 square right on the flattest area they could find.
Well, yeah, of course. And by the way, not necessarily. Let me show you something real quick. Look at this picture right here and show you what I mean. It wasn't flat, actually, but because people don't study the topography either. So what you see here on the left is a map, a topographical map that either Warren published in 1884. This is 1884, bro. It's crazy. And it was so accurate that they still in use today. That's how accurate it was.
Perspective.
Okay.
Knowing showed before.
Do you see on the right? You see the Valley of Bethesda right here?
Yes.
My cursor. There it is in the topographical map. Look, you see the indentation right here?
Huh, yes.
There you have it. Yes. So now what's interesting is that what they did, they put the topographical maps, and then they included all of the cisterns. See, this is a cistern. That is a cistern. They're all there. Look how many they have there. So what we have here is all the cisterns that the water came from, the pools of Salomon's pools right here. This is found in Bethlehem. Now there's 3 big pools. You know how much water those pools can provide?
A lot.
over 228,000 metric cubits, 60 million gallons of water. And then how do they get it to Jerusalem? They have them springs. They all come from spring water. So you have all the springs in Bethlehem directing with the you have all the what do you call it? All the conduits from that area, the aqueduct, and you have one pool, right? And then it goes right to the 3 pools right here. And then one pool will go to the upper aqueduct in the upper city in Jerusalem. And then the other ones go to the lower city, which includes the temple. Wow. They don't talk about this stuff. And by the way, this was discovered by Amihai Mazar, which is one of the family members of Benjamin Mazar and Elam Mazar, the foremost authority on the temple walls and temple research. That's not including Dan Bahat, who's one of the authorities of the Western Wall. So again, this is all verifiable. Okay, you have to do is look it up. Now, but people don't want to do that, huh?
Of these aqueducts, how many are still in existence today? Are they just tunnel systems? Oh, you just flipped to the next slide. Wow.
Yeah, so, man, I knew you were going to ask me that.
Are they all just similar to this kind of tunnel system we see with your mouse right now?
Absolutely. And you know, these were still in use into the 1920s. These were still in use. If you go to the Bible Lands, to the Jerusalem Museum, and you go by the temple model on the second story right there, the temple model, you can see one of the one of the conduits still there. It's incredible how they put them together. They were still working into the late 1920s. I mean, the whole I mean, think about it. It's 24 miles from Jerusalem. They're bringing the water, and that was constant.
Were all of these
again?
Were some of them above ground, or were all of them subterranean?
Some were subterranean and some were above ground, like we see here. And we can't go there now because the pools of the Solomon's pools are found. They're called Solomon's pool, but it's not like he built them. But they're in the area of the Bethlehem, and we can't get in there now. Now look at this one. This is a public water reservoir dating to the First Temple period. right here by, and I think I've been there, by the way. I've been inside that thing. That could provide 67,000 gallons. And by the way, you require water because when you go back, let me go back to this verse. Listen to what it says in Ezekiel. It says, he brought me back to the door of the house, and behold, water issued from under the threshold of the house eastward. So this is east over here, okay? And it says, from the front of the house towards the east, and the water came down from the right side of the house on the south of the altar, right in here. Just so happens this is cistern is number, let me tell you which one it is. Right here, number 28. Number 28. But when the people talk about moving the temple to the city of David, did they teach you this stuff? No. They defend Roman construction more than proving that the temple was there. This is the logic. Okay, let's just move the temple and let's just pretend. Oh, by the way, it looked Roman because the construction was Roman. Newsflash, Herod was a client, a vassal king of the Roman Empire. And a lot of the construction he did trying to please Caesar, Caesarea by the sea. It took 12 years to complete, and he built it to appease Caesar. And then he did Herodion, and then he did some of the other places that, you know, he did some of the other places that would that to appease the Romans. He did imperial cities all over the place. So then he decided, well, I need to try to remodel the temple because, you know, I'm spending all this money and all these people. So what does he do? He take the readily available technology of the Romans, and then he expands on the Temple Mount. He makes it a rectangular, and he adds to the west, to the north, to the south, and then he makes retaining walls. There you go. And he expands Fort Antonio.
Wow.
But now everybody's saying the temple wasn't there because he looked Roman. Well, hello, he was a Roman servant. As long as they don't do anything to the 500 by 500 that I told you earlier, we're good. You know, and they never did. As a matter of fact, Josephus tells us that that Herod, he hired 1,800 priests. They taught them to be stonemasons because they could not go into the area here. Let me show you real quick. I'm going to share the screen again. Are you getting something out of this, bro?
Yeah. So it seems at least to some extent, Herod was respecting the premises of the temple, and that's why he hired priests to be masons so that they wouldn't trespass on holy ground. Exactly,
because he was an Edomite and he could not go in there. So you see this area right here, all of this area right here that you see, all of this area right here that you see is most holy. No Levi can go into this area right in here. So the altar and the steps and the building outside, and that building is called the Azara, 135 cubits. It cannot go in there. So they taught 1,800 priests to do the work of stonemasons, and it took them 1.5 years to finish. So they have 15,000 employees, 15,000 building around. It took them 60 years, 49 years to finish it, but it took them 1.5 years to finish this area in here. But Herod could never go in there because he was an Edomite. Even though he was a king, he was not of the line of David. And people, if we consider all that information, then everything makes sense. See, this is the most holy area, 500 by 500. You see, that's what we're focusing on. And everybody's talking about, because this area here of the royal store looked like a Roman building. Now the temple wasn't there. But this area is not encroaching on the holy area of the temple. So it's okay. It don't matter. As long as there's no idols inside, it's okay. Just like at one point, they had Greek buildings right there.
So with this design, whenever you talk about it looking Roman or not, and people justifying that the temple wasn't here because it was supposedly a Roman construction, where do they say that the temple is? And why do they?
Let me see if I can find it.
This other example for where they say the temple was.
let me try to find it real quick. Let me see if I can find that picture. Okay. So let me finish my screen. Let me stop sharing real quick, and then I'll try to get it for you, because that's a very good question. I just did a teaching. I'm hoping that I could find that picture real quick so I can show you. But if we look into the geography of the temple, it'll make sense. You know, it'll make sense. But many people don't even know how much the temple is supposed to be, how big it was supposed to be. You know, we're just throwing things in the air. All I'm submitting to people is, don't be so quick to move something that is holy just because you don't understand it. You know what I mean? This is a serious thing. And, you know, look, my teacher's been doing this 40 years. Okay? 40 years doing temple research. And we still go to Jerusalem to make sure that we have it right. You know, by no means we think that we have everything perfect. You know what I mean? We're learning. But what I would like for people to consider is, why make a decision about something holy if you don't really know what it is? You know, it's a serious thing. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And
so just take the time to research it. I'm still looking for the picture. Give me a minute. I'll get it for you.
And I don't want to jump the gun, but maybe I can bring this up while you're looking for that picture. But of course, this begs the question: in modern day Israel, what areas are? I mean, there's a lot of division going on in Jerusalem right now between the Palestinians and those who control the Temple Mount, the mosque, and everything. Would you be able to, after we jump on to where this other supposed temple site is, would you be willing to demonstrate to us in one of those pictures what areas are off limits that are Muslim controlled? Where is the mosque in relation to those graphics? I mean, you've walked this.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'll try to get it. I'm sorry, man. I'm taking too long here. But let me try to move this over so I can do it faster. That should be easy to show you. I think the problem lies in that, you know, if we do not understand the geography of the temple, this is the key. Geography of the temple is paramount. And the reality is, we're not really aware of the geography of the temple. You made it very important. You asked a very important question, which was very good. I'm glad you did. Okay. You said, where is it located, connected to the information you see? So I found the picture. Okay. So I'm going to come right in here real quick. Whoops. Sorry, man. I still struggle with how to deal with this computer.
No problem. I didn't mean to jump the gun with that extra question I tacked on there. You know,
no, I don't mind at all. That's what I'm here for. I mean, I don't mind at all.
So,
okay, so let me share the screen real quick, okay? All right. So what you see here coming up is a picture of the city of David. This is the city of David, the Pool of Shiloh right here. This is the topography in the 1st century. All right. So now they think that the temple was somewhere right in here, right in this area.
Yes.
Mind you, the only source of water there would be the Gihon Spring that is down here. The Gihon Spring is way down here by the Kidron Valley. Now think about this. They don't read about what Hezekiah did. Hezekiah, the king, when the Assyrians wanted to conquer Jerusalem, he redirected the water to the south. Now remember, the first temple was still standing at the time of Hezekiah. Okay? So he redirected the water to the south. And the temple was still functioning at the time. So if the city of David is here, and the temple was somewhere here instead of on top, then why would he redirect the water? And what would you do with all those sacrifices that you have to do every day?
Mm-hmm.
You see? So this area right now, you know what this area used to be? It was a hippodrome at the time of the Romans. Okay? And now at the time...
what is a hippodrome?
Yeah, hippodrome. Yeah. They used to run horses in there.
Oh, okay. I wasn't familiar.
And at the time... Yeah, and at the time of the Greeks, There was a huge building right in this area. It was called the Acra. The Acra, huge building that was very tall, so the Greeks could look into the temple and see what the Jewish people were doing. And then Simon the Maccabee, when they defeated the Greeks, he destroyed it. He completely got rid of that building. And by the way, they discovered that building and the remnants of it. It's called the Gevati parking lot today in Jerusalem. It's been digging for the last 10 years right there, and they found the evidence. So what people are saying the temple was actually a Greek building built by the Seleucid kingdom. That's how much they don't really understand about archaeology and geography and topography and history. It's sad. It's really sad what's going on. And the sad thing is that the people promoting this, they are getting amounts of interest from people because the anti-Semitic and anti-temple thing. That's the sad thing. So you asked me a question. Where would the mosque be in connection with that particular area? That's a very good question. The pictures that I show you. So let me go back to my PowerPoint. So I will show you if I can find it now. Nope. There we go. All right. So this building, and I have it right in here so I can show it to you. All right. So this is the Temple Mount. Okay. This is east. Whoops. This is east right here in the bottom. That's north on your right of your screen. And that's west. Okay. So what you see is the Temple Mount. This is what the temple would have looked like. The buildings, the dimensions and everything. And this in the center is the dome of the rock right now.
Wow. So
that's where the Holy Holies was.
Directly on top of it.
You know why? Because the Muslims, if you follow ancient Near Eastern history, you will know that the ancient world, when they will defeat an enemy, they will shame your God by destroying the temple, destroying the image of the temple of your God, and killing the people. And what they will do to show their sovereignty over you, your kingdom, shame you and your God, they will build another temple of their gods on top of your temple to let you know that your God has no power, that I defeated you. The Muslims have done that all along. Everywhere they go, they don't destroy the church, they build a mosque. And they superimpose their authority over.
With that, so with Catholic, the Catholic kind of expeditions across the world, they often kind of followed that same mentality of building a cathedral or a church over top of whatever holy site that they conquered in the name of Christianity,
right.
Catholic version of Christianity.
Right. And it's only logical because when you talk about honor and shame and you talk about the way the ancient world worked, that's only logical. It's like, I just shamed you. I just destroyed you. I just killed your God, your people, your priests, and your temple. Now I'm going to tell you that my God is greater than yours. And that's why the Muslims destroy things, and then they build their stuff on top of it. And let me show you another picture here real quick that I think will give you an idea of something that is important. Do you see this right here, this cistern right here? You got this? You see my mouse right here? I'm going to put it in the center. Follow to the south, right here. You got it?
I see that.
Okay. That is Cistern 27. Now, why is that important? Cistern 27 was found right in this area. Now, this is the court of the women. Now we're looking east, okay? So this is east right here. This is west, north, and south. So now, that cistern that I just showed you is underneath this building. That's like 60 feet high, this building was. Now, did you realize what was that little building for? There's 4 buildings. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, this building on the northeast corner was the room of the wood. The one on the southeast was the Nazarite. That's what Paul went in to shave his hair and to put it under the huge pot that was in there. The one right here in the southwest is the room of the oils. Northwest, right here, that was the chamber for the lepers. Now, this is the cool thing. Let me show you where it would have been. So now we're looking from south to north in the court of the women. Now look at the scale. Look how big it was. Look at, see, this is made to scale.
Wow, that's a big, big structure.
Now, so we're looking. So this is the cistern that was underneath a building over here, 2 cisterns, and this one is underneath this building. You think, well, Rico, who cares? So what? It's a cistern. Well, the reason is, once you know the topography, once you know the water sources, then you put the buildings on top of it. Now the buildings have a function, and that's the leper's chamber. And inside, they had a mikvah. They had an immersion pool that no one has ever used. Yeshua told us that no Israelite have ever been healed of leprosy. Naaman was from Syria, and Miriam was in the wilderness, and it's a different type of leprosy. It's more like a skin rash. Anyway, but in Israel, no one has ever been healed of leper before. Now Yeshua heals 10 lepers. Well, they're Samaritans. The Samaritans, they hated the Jews. The Jews hated the Samaritans. So now the Samaritans did not respect Jerusalem as the place where God has placed his name. And the Jews did not respect the Samaritans. Now check this out. So imagine now there are 10 lepers, and they come to Jerusalem. The Samaritans, they have to submit to the authority of the temple, because they only believe the Shechem, which is in the northern part. And now the Jews have to accept them because they were healed, and they have to do a mikvah in there. So you see, once you understand the water sources, the function of each building, now that story of the lepers, when Yeshua says, go present yourself to the priest. So where did he have to go? He comes through after he does an immersion outside the temple, right on the southern walls. Then he will come right here to this door. It's called the northern wicket, right in here. Do you follow my cursor?
Yes, I see that.
See, that big door is called the Nicanor gate, 50 cubits high. So he will come over here, and they do a ritual. And to finish it, he will come in here, and he will do the mikvah. Or before, I can't remember. But if you don't know about the functions of the building, you will never make the connection between, you will look at this and you go, what is all this stuff? What is Bir Es-Siwani? And what is that funky looking thing right over there? You know? But now that you know the building, you know the function, you know the water, makes sense.
So what you're saying with this is that nobody had gone to mikvah in that particular place until those 10 lepers were healed.
Absolutely. No leper were ever healed.
And so that
no lepers were.
It was specifically designated for lepers only, and so no lepers had been healed. None could go to purify themselves in that mikvah?
No, because that was holy ground. In other words, no leper was allowed to be even within the city of Jerusalem.
Oh, wow.
So let me take you back to that. Hopefully I didn't erase that other picture. I probably did. But the other picture that I showed you in the city, a leper cannot come into the city, inside the city walls, because the city wall was holy. So these Samaritans will never come to Jerusalem. They could not come in. And no one was ever immersed there, because a leper cannot come in there as a leper. He has to already go through the waters of sanctification. He has to go see the priest. He has to be immersed. He's just finishing the ritual. And it's interesting that even the rabbis know that the Messiah is called the leper Messiah, sitting at the Garden of Eden, as the last Adam, and he will bring, and they quote Isaiah 53 in regards to that. So you see what I'm trying to do? If you understand the geography, topography, archaeology, and the functions of the building, then the whole story makes sense.
It
just, wow, okay. It takes life.
It's you can see the lepers as they run up. And as we're looking at these maps, I know the one you have up on the screen right now, you can almost see the little ant people walking across the screen, going up to that gate, just as Rico described. And then after they get, after they get okayed by the priest, they make their way over to that mikvah chamber. And the last question is that so that mikvah chamber was specifically set aside only for lepers, and
no one else used it.
And that is why it was a big deal when the 10 lepers came there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was 21 feet. by 11 feet 77 inches, 21 feet high. I mean, again, this is what I'm talking about. You know, I've talked to people who talk about the temple being a city of David, and they can never give me any of this information. To them, it was like, well, it wasn't there because of the temple, because of the fort. And I'm thinking, that's not scholarship, especially when it deals with the holy things. I mean, if you look at the topography of Jerusalem, the city of David is not the mountaintop like Ezekiel says. So you see, you can read that verse in Matthew 24 that I read you earlier. On one verse, how much have we learned on one verse?
Quite a few things, I'd say.
Isn't that exciting though? I mean, that's the whole idea. So many people, they try to bring their arguments, and I welcome their arguments. It's okay. I mean, we don't have to agree, but don't come with theory. Let me show you something. This is the book that everybody uses. Ernest Martin. This is the big old thing. Then Bob Carnook is going around using his stuff without really researching and running with it and making tons of money, and that, you know, good for him. Also, unfortunately, he's making money of bad research and lies because it's not true. All right. And I hate to say that bluntly, but it's when you do the research, you can stand on the research. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm going to read you from the acknowledgement. Okay. From the acknowledgement of the book. All right. All right. It says, this is how this guy came up with his research. Now, I know that Ernest Martin, he helped in the digs. Lee Riedmeyer, which was the chief architect for Benjamin Mazar, okay, who was the leading authority of the Western Wall and the Southern Steps research and the archaeology, said he never met this guy in 10 years that he was the chief architect. Now, but he was there. He was helping somehow, somewhat. So this is what he wrote. Listen to this. I'm going to read you from the middle. This is from the acknowledgement of the book. And this is what everybody's running with, okay? But I want to read you something. It says, I watched closely how Professor Benjamin Mazar and Meir Ben Dov, his assistant at the time, went about their professional duties, and this was a great learning experience. Both of them were more than willing to answer questions for me in many private times that I could learn from them. So he is saying, I met with them in private. I asked them questions. But it's interesting that he never asked them the question that the temple was on the city of David. Listen to where he got it from. Watch this. I later met Professor Mazar's son, Ovi, who was the first to recommend to me that the temples of Salomon and Zerubbabel were located in the Ophel Mount, just to the north of the original Mount Zion in the southeast ridge. He said, so now Ernest Martin is saying that his son told him, when Ernest Martin already said that he met many times with Benjamin Mazar, but he never asked him the question. So it's all hearsay, okay? And he said that his father was leaning in that direction at the time of his death. So now we have a whole book on a theory on a guy who told them that maybe the temple was down there. And listen to this. It gets better. It says, after a study of 6 months in 1995, I wrote a preliminary report that suggested strongly that this theory was indeed correct to 2 earlier temples. So let me get this straight. After a 6 whole months of study based on a theory, on something that someone tell them, forget about all the evidence to the contrary. Everybody's running around with this book, running with it, creating havoc, moving the temple, which is most holy, without considering the topography, the history, the geography, the biblical evidence that's there. That's the problem that I have with the whole theory.
So how widespread is this particular mindset of whatever this guy, through conjecture, he basically made money off a book and told everybody, hey, where this Roman architecture is, that's not really where the temple is. It's over here down, in a different area. How widespread is it?
It's running rampant right now. It's creating a huge problem. And what people don't realize, they are committing ma'al. most holy to the Lord. He says the whole mountaintop. If you go back to the book of Ezekiel, clearly tells you, in order for people to try to establish this, they have to minimize the book of Ezekiel. It's amazing how people trying to establish their own theories and minimize the biblical book. I don't get it, but it happens. Listen to this. This is the law of the temple, the whole area surrounding the mountaintop shall be most holy. Now, if you do topography, let me take you back. I want to show you the topography of the mount now. Okay? Let me share this again because I want you to see it. Don't believe me. You know how I am. Check it out. So when you go to topographical maps, right in here, let me take you one here. You can see the topography. You see the Ophel? This is what they're saying right here, where the temple was. This area is lower than this area. It says the whole mountain top. When you look at the pictures of the Temple Mount now, and I showed you a little earlier. Hold on, let me see if I can find one now. When I need stuff, I can't find it. I have one in the previous study that I did. Okay, here we go. So when you go to the Temple Mount right here, to get to the mount, to the Dome of the Rock, you have to actually go up all those steps right here. You see him?
Yes.
Follow my cursor. You see my cursor right here in the little bitty dome? If you go to the east down here, steps. These all steps. These all steps. That means that this area, the platform that you see right there, was always there. That's where the holy place was. That's where the area of the priest was. It was higher elevation. Now, let me take you to this picture right here. If you look at this picture, look, this is the topography in the bottom. You can see in the topography from the side that the court of the women, right here where the chamber of the mikvah was lower than this area up here. Mm-hmm. And then you have 12 steps from this area, 15 steps from the court of the women, and then from the court of the priests, that was a platform, and then from the court of the priest to the holy place was 12 more steps. So the topography, that means that where the temple stood, that was the mountaintop. But ask them if they can answer that question, because they don't study topography.
If you could,
again, it comes back to.
If you could go back to the slide with the overhead of the mosque, the modern day picture.
Right here?
I have heard some theories that they said that apparently they would be able to build the third temple if they build one side by side with the mosque. But
yeah, that's not going to happen. Now, people used to believe that, and there are different scholars who believe that until this little piece of information. I baited you. Let me show it to you. I hope I have it here because it was the key of my research. It's called Cistern 28. Cistern 28 right here.
Okay.
Where is it? I'm looking for it. Okay. You see this cistern right here, number 28?
Yes.
See where the red arrow is?
Yes.
You see the arrow?
Yes.
Are you with me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, you see the red arrow?
Yes, yes, I do.
Okay, south of it, number 28, right here.
Okay.
Are you with me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. So you're saying based on where the cisterns are located, this proves that it can't be in a different location because it had to be right on top of these cisterns, like with that last graphic you showed us with the 10 lepers. It has to line up. The puzzle piece has to fit on top of the pre-existing natural cisterns.
Right. Let me show it to you. You see this right here, this little conduit on the cistern?
Yes.
Okay, let me show you. Let me go back to this one here, because this will show it better, okay? right here. Okay, right here. You see this cistern right there?
Yes.
Now, building cistern 28, on top of that, on that cistern, about 40 feet above it, above the cistern, because this was 50 feet on the ground. Okay, it was quite big anyway. So you have on top of this cistern, you have Beit Aptinas. You have this building right here, this building right here. Okay.
Okay.
And in that building, if you go back to this, you see the little hand that is coming out of the corner there?
I do.
That is a rain drainage. That is called the Beth Horoda Hamayim. What that is that in the temple, let me try to describe it to you. Let me stop sharing for a minute because I want to describe it to you. Okay. So let's say this is the building from north to south. Okay. So the Mishnah describes the building of the temple. This is the big building of the temple. Wait a minute. Sorry, I don't do things the conventional way. Still here. All right, check this out. Wow. Okay.
Fast.
So this building right here would be
Yes.
Beit Aptinas, right in here. It was a lot bigger than this, clearly. Okay. So the building, this will be the north, this will be the south. So what I showed you earlier will be the Mishnah describes how the measurements of the wall from north to south. This is the kicker. So if you know the cisterns, you know their function, then you'll know. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong side. This is right here is the south. Yeah, this is the south. This is the north, okay? Because of the altar has to go to the south. You see how you can correct that? You see how you can correct the mistake by understanding the temples and the functions of the altar?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so now this is north. This is, whoops, I just broke it. This is south. Okay? It's okay, it does that all the time. So what they did, they decided, I broke the temple, man. So they decided to start dividing the walls in here and measure the walls. But when it gets to the south over here, it tells you in the Mishnah, clearly it says that there was a water drainage that is called the Beth Horodat Hamayim, because the top of the building was not flat like this, slightly slanted. So when it snowed and it rained, they will gather that water and they will save it into the cistern. Now, when you actually do the measurements of the temple and you understand the location of the temple and you understand the function of the temple, you can literally, within inches, put the temple building. I'm going to show it to you here now so you see what I mean. Give me a second. Let me share it again. So once you understand the cisterns, right, then you can go back and put the topographical map. And I know it's a little complex right now, but you see this right here? This is the same cistern. This area is the temple. You see this little space right in there?
Yeah.
That is the water drainage that I was telling you about. It was 3 cubits wide between this wall and that wall. So the black lines represent the walls. And that was the water drainage. Came from the top of the temple all the way down to the southeast. And it came into the little conduit and went into the cistern. We presented this to the Temple Institute. And they were blown away. At least to the leader of the temple for now. And they actually has not done the research. They were blown away because they don't really put all this information together. They only put certain things. But this was something that they know through the Mishnah that it talks about, but they never really put it together. It was Joseph Good with all the research, using the archaeology, using the geography, topography, Josephus, and all the other books, the letter of Aristeas, and all the research from all the scholars and all the archaeologists. The Jews have known about but they could never understand what it was for. They knew it was a water drainage, but if you have a drainage, you have to have a place to go to.
Mm-hmm.
When you have this whole cistern that was dug in the late, that it was discovered in the 1800s by Charles Wilson and Warren, and then again excavated and measured by Sheik, and then also by Barclay. When these people began to put all these things together, they said, wait a minute, this is the reason why you have the water drainage in the temple, to go into the cistern. So again, you put the topography, the geography, you put the archaeology, the functions in the temple, and the locations of the temple, everything lines up.
So
now I want you to do me a favor. When you find someone who tries to propose the whole idea of the temple being in the city of David, ask them questions about the location of the temple, critical archaeological evidence, and they're going to give you this crazy ideas about, well, it's Roman because of the Roman fort and whatever. And there was a Roman fort. It's called Fort Antonia. There was plenty of space on the north. It's not encroaching on the temple. I don't have a problem with that. So you mean to tell me that you're going to move the temple because you're worried about 6,000 soldiers in a legion, which, by the way, the Roman legion have never really took seat in Jerusalem until the siege of Jerusalem. They were to Caesarea at one point, and then they went to Syria and Egypt. They came to the Mount of Olives when they were doing the siege of Jerusalem. After the destruction of the temple, then they took hold of the Temple Mount. So, okay, so you have 6,000 on a legion. You have to accommodate over 250,000 people from the temple service. And right now, when the Muslims pray, you can easily put it. I mean, Al-Aqsa Mosque, right here on the south, on this area, it could hold 10,000 people underground. It's lack of scholarship, man. It saddens me that people fall for this stuff because it's sensational. They don't want facts. You know, they don't want to really study the facts. They want sensationalism. And that saddens me because we're dealing with a temple. This is not about speculation. This is a holy thing. And I wish people would have a little more respect for the holy things of the Lord. It really grieves me. But, you know, I'm only one person. I'm doing my best to present the information and let the Spirit of the Most High lead us to all truth.
Now, with this information, I got to ask, how cutting edge is this? How recent is this, you know, pairing the cisterns and the temple and really being able to verify that location specifically? How recent have you been studying into this and discovering that really, in fact, was the actual location?
Yeah, I mean, you know, look, all the evidence have been there all along. We have Eliezer ben Yaakov, who was a priest in the 1st century. He was the contemporary with Paul, with Yeshua, with Philo, and with Josephus, and he wrote the tractate of the Mishnah Midot. He was a priest in the 1st century. Okay, so we have an eyewitness account, a primary source. So we know that there was water coming from the temple because it tells us. Okay, the Bible tells us too in the book of Ezekiel. And the thing is that that then we have all the evidence on Solomon's pools that's been discovered. Then we have all these guys from the Palestine Exploration Fund in the 1800s. They did the digging. They found the walls. They found the entrances. They found the cisterns. They found all that stuff. Then you have the archaeology. Then you have all those guys come in later on and do more archaeology proving that the location was there. And then you have my teacher, Joseph Good, who what he did, he took all of Josephus, Philo, the letter of Aristeas. He took the rabbinical writings, the Mishnah, the Tosefta. He took all the archaeology, all the topography, all the geography, all the history, and he put it together with the Bible. And guess what? Everything lined up. The water source is answered. The space is answered. The location of the cisterns compared to the function of each building, the answer is there. I mean, there's not a problem. It's just the people who assume, who speculate, who have not done the research. You know, have they studied Benjamin Mazar's research? Eilat Mazar, Ehud Nexer, Lee Riedmeyer? Have they studied the copper scrolls from Yael Gadin? Yadin, I'm sorry. Yadin and all those people. You know, have they done the research? I do. I've been doing that now for a few years. And I'm going back in January, here in January, to go over the information and learn more. So again, this is the journey we're in, man, and we're learning and we go through it. So
and
it's part of the process.
What's next? That you're excited about in terms of what you feel is on the cusp of being discovered or revealed in these trips over to Israel, maybe particularly with the temple or really anything else. I know you take quite frequent journeys over there.
Yeah.
But what is the next thing that's coming out that you believe they're going to dig up or reveal or announce publicly?
Well, right now they know they keep finding more stuff underneath the Western Wall. And by the way, that question, Valerie was asking a question: is the Western Wall today the same one as in biblical times, or are the Jews praying in front of a fake? If so, do they know it is fake? Well, the Jews know that the Western Wall today was not the original Western Wall of the temple. The Jews know, and I'll answer your question in a minute, but the Jews know that the Western Wall today is only as far as they can go on the Temple Mount to pray. They're not allowed to go any farther.
Mm-hmm.
The Jews know that they are praying actually about 45 feet above street level from the first century. And the Jews also know that the wall there is a retaining wall. So it's just the Western world have no idea. It's not a fake. It's a retaining wall. They cannot get any farther. They can't go pray on the Temple Mount. So therefore they need a place where they can gather and do their prayers. And it's the closest that they can find to the holy place and the Holy Holies. So they pray there. It's not holier than the Temple Mount. It's just the place they have access to without being molested and bothered. You know what I mean? So the location of the Western Wall is not the point. It's the Western Wall. That means that it was there in the first century. That's really the question. So the question you asked me, right now, they have discovered the Gebati parking lot. They know that's the Accra. The discoveries in the city of David. At no point at all, none of the archaeologists doing the Elat Mazar, who's one of the chief people who did the digging there at one point. There's others now, but none of them have ever said, "Oh, the temple was here." None of them. There's not evidence of that. This is just a made-up thing by some guy who studied that for 6 months. That's it. And sadly, people have taken the bait. And it saddens me because we're dealing with the house of the king, guys. This is the house of the king. What's wrong with the temple? We don't understand it. We don't study it. Again, the book of Revelation talks all about temple language, but we don't see it. So again, they found the walkway, the first century street, and that they were used to come up to the feast days. They found the first century street, and I was actually able to walk it. It's a tunnel now. When they would go from the Shiloach all the way up. Let me see if I can get it here real quick, okay? Which is really fascinating. If you think about it, the discoveries that they found, I'm telling you, it's overwhelming, incredible. I got the picture right here. You're going to see it in a minute now. Let me tell you, man, it's amazing the amount of information that we're having. And I'm so excited because I tell you, it's incredible. Oh, yeah. What we have, what we can see. And I tell you, man, I'm so happy. So you can see it because it's not letting me. Let's see how I can do this. Give me a second. It's not letting me open it. But I don't know how much more time we have. I appreciate your time, man, allowing me the time to share this.
We'll go ahead and jump into some questions. Unless you wanted to, if you're unable to.
No, go ahead. We can do some questions.
Yeah. So we do have a couple.
I only have a few more minutes because I have to head out, but.
Yeah. We'll go ahead and get these questions out. I don't think we only have 3 right now. So first of all, we did have one that came in before, kind of talking prophetically. What can we look forward to? But first, I'd like you maybe to have you comment on recent events with the Trump announcing the move to Jerusalem and a Palestinian divide of the Temple Mount and kind of the turmoil that we see going on now. Whenever you showed us the picture of the mosque and kind of where it is in placement over the temple, what areas are people allowed to go and travel to? And do you think this is going to be influenced or changed with these big kind of political decisions coming down the chute?
You mean the decision to move the embassy?
Yes, yes.
Look, what people don't realize is that every president since the Bush have promised to move the embassy to Jerusalem. Jerusalem has been the capital of Israel from millennia. We know that. And none of the presidents, they promised it when they're running for presidency, they never did it. Well, the only one who has the courage to do it now, people are freaking out over. And let's take it from a biblical perspective, because God uses men to fulfill his purpose. And the important thing here is that Jerusalem is the place where the Lord has placed his name. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
So recognizing Jerusalem as the city of the capital of Israel by a foreign nation, unknowingly, he is giving honor to the God of Israel because that is his land. I mean, the Temple Mount, according to scripture, says that was he places his feet. That is the place of his throne. So if you move the capital, you recognize Jerusalem as the capital, you are not really playing politics without knowing he is actually bringing honor to the God of Israel, because that's where he has placed his name. He is saying, I recognize that this is the ancient city, the capital of, but the one who gave the authority to make it the capital was the God of Israel. So therefore, he's bringing honor to the God of Israel. And because the Lord says, I will honor those who honor me and I will curse those, I will bless those who bless me and curse me those who curse me. You curse Israel, you be cursed. You bless Israel, you be blessed. So, we will be blessed, not because the president is perfect, but because he's done something right. Without knowing or not is irrelevant. It's like the king of Persia, Cyrus, when he sent the Israelites back to the land of Israel with Zerubbabel to rebuild the temple and to give them money, he recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. So therefore, wasn't the Persian Empire prosperous because of it? Absolutely. They were the most prosperous nation in the ancient world. Why? Because they blessed the people, they blessed the land, and they blessed the temple, and you're blessing the God of Israel. And thus, my God is a equitable God, and he blesses those who honor him. That's why I will forever stand on his temple. I will teach on his house. And I will always stand for his righteousness, because every bone in my body, every cell in my soul, every organ in my body will bless them and will exalt him and will stand for his Torah, for his covenant, for his people, for his temple, and for my Messiah forever. And if he doesn't want to bless me any more than I am, so be it. Dayenu, like we say in Pesach. But I know his character, and he blesses those who stand for him and who bring honor to his name. So prophetically, it's interesting that we will be blessed because the leader of this nation, took the opportunity to say, I recognize Jerusalem as the capital. Hey, it could be political. He just stumbled into a blessing because trying to look good for Netanyahu, maybe. He blessed the name of God without thinking. You know what I mean? I mean, people stumble into commandments all the time, and God is faithful. He cannot take the blessings away. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's so exciting just to think about. And really the reason I bring up that particular topic, current events, is people are always talking about the third temple and when is it going to be built prophetically, this coming third temple. And from what you've presented us tonight, it looks like it just being erected next to the Dome of the Rock is not a very possible thing. So whenever we talk about a possible third temple or something like that, and we see these waves of big deal things happening in the world today, especially with Trump recognizing Jerusalem, how does that play in? How do you think that would be able to?
Okay. So we can speculate a little bit. Okay, I never get into the speculation mode, but I kind of like to do it today. Did you ever imagine that in the 1st of January or the 2nd of January, you're going to hear about Iran, the people of Iran raising up against the government saying death to the Khomeini? No. What if the Iranian government falls and then the people take over and the whole change of government? What if Hezbollah changes? What if the king of Jordan dies and then now you have a new leader? Well, the Temple Mount is controlled by the king of Jordan. You know, so, I mean, so many things are just moving at a rapid pace that you don't really need, what people don't realize, you do not need the whole temple to be built in order for the Antichrist to be revealed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me propose this to you. And I talked to my teacher on this one, and we kind of disagree on this, okay? So we exchange and we respect each other, but I disagree with him. He thinks that the whole temple needs to be rebuilt. I do not think so. Let me give you a biblical precedent. In the time of Nehemiah and Ezra, they came years later. Zerubbabel came first. Okay? And they built the altar, and the altar was functioning, working as a temple. And they began to build the structure, but then they couldn't do it because the Samaritans turned against them. But the altar was still functioning 19 years. For 19 years, as long as the altar functions, that's the temple to God. So let's say that the whole chips happen one after the other, and then now the Israelites get control of the Temple Mount. The first thing they're going to do, they're going to dedicate the area, they're going to sanctify it, they're going to build the altar, and guess how many days the altar takes to build? 7 days. On the 8th day is an altar to the Lord. So you don't need the whole structure, because the altar represents the authority of Yah on the earth. So that's why we have Hanukkah. Hanukkah means dedication. And Hanukkah is the dedication of the altar. It took 7-8 days. That's why you have the Hanukkah, because the center one likes the other ones. It deals with each day of the dedication of the temple. It has nothing to do with the oil, with the so-called miracle of the oil. It has to do with the dedication of the temple. So can I submit to you that if they take over the Temple Mount and they destroy the mosque or the dome, all they have to do is build the altar. And guess what? Let me show you something. Let me go back to that picture. And I have to run after this, see if I can find the slide now. Okay, so I'm going to share it again. Let me propose this to you. All right, watch this. So you have the Temple Mount, but let me find another one. Let me find the other slide that shows the Temple Mount a little bit better. Right here. Now, you see this is where the temple, where the dome is? That's where the Holy of Holies was, okay? You see this in here? The little dome? The altar would have fit right in this area right here. Right in this area right here, the altar will fit. Do you see any buildings there?
I don't.
So let me propose this to you. They control the Temple Mount. The first thing they need to do, they got to cut every tree. No trees on the Temple Mount. That is against the Torah. The next thing they need to do, they have to destroy this dome. They destroy the dome. They clear that area. You build the altar. 7-8 days. That's it. Now they're going to continue to try to build the rest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if I know where the buildings are, based on the, think about this. If I know where the buildings are, based on the cisterns, based on the topography, based on the geography, then I know exactly where the altar will be. You follow? So it's not just placing an altar there. It has to be exactly in the place where it was in the first and second temple period. So do you see the role that we're playing here?
Yeah, I do.
Who knows? Who knows? Maybe we may be the believers in Yeshua who may be able to help. That's a far-fetched in my mind, because they would never ask us. But imagine if we put all this research together and now they have a question about the location of the buildings and we know where they are because we take everything in consideration.
Yeah, it's
Would that be like a great sense of humor from the Lord? Don't you think Yah is going to have a sense of humor? Let's use believers in Yeshua who study the temple to help us locate the altar. How about that, huh? Let's just pray that will come true. But anyway, so what the question you asked me is a very good question. But I do not believe you need the whole temple in order for it to be functioning, according to the biblical precedent of the time of Ezra and Nehemiah, during the time of Zerubbabel. So again, you see how you need to understand the whole overall picture? It's not just saying, oh, the temple's in the city of David and that's it. No, you don't understand. You're dealing with holy things.
Now, some have postulated that it would only need to be a tabernacle recreated that could be used as the abomination of desolation with the Antichrist being revealed, that they could just set up a tabernacle and that could be used. What is your opinions on that perspective, that it doesn't have to be a temple itself?
No, because it's a blueprint, and the book of Ezekiel has given you exact blueprint. The book of Ezekiel gives you the exact blueprint of that. So if people say, well, that's an abominable thing, the mountain is defiled, whatever. Well, the mountain is holy because God placed his name there. Defilement doesn't mean that it's not still set apart by God. Mm-hmm. And what happens is people don't realize that you cannot change the blueprint. You cannot change it. It's like let's say you want to go build a building. You need an architect, and he gives you the plans. Do you have the right as a contractor to change the plans, or you have to follow the plan to the letter?
Agreed. Yeah.
See, this is my point. So God gives us the plans to David and then to Ezekiel, and now we're changing the plan and the location of it. It's like you taking the plans of a building, you're the contractor, but you look at the place and you say, nah, too much work. I'm going to put it over here and I'm going to change the foundation. But what happens if that building falls? Who carries the responsibility? Well, the architect. But once the architect says, but wait a minute, he didn't build it what I told him, and he didn't use the tools, he didn't use the foundation, he didn't use everything I told him, then the person who built it carries the sin. Now, let me show you something, and then I have to leave, okay? But I really appreciate your time. Can you please go to Numbers chapter 18 for me?
Yes.
And I want to let this one sit and think about when you guys have an opportunity. Meditate on this. Listen, do not believe anything I say. And by the way, I don't have anything against Ernest Martin personally. I never met the man. He must have been a really good guy. I don't care. Probably was. I'm not talking bad as a person, but as a researcher, he missed the boat. But as a person, I'm sure he was a great guy. But I think it's sad that people are taking someone's research and running with it without really verifying it. And that's irresponsible, in my opinion. You know, and I recommend for people to do the research and seek out the guys that really do the research, like Joseph Good, like, you know, all the people who do the research. I don't say look me up because I'm still learning. You know, I'm not really a main teacher on this. I've been a student for 20 years on the temple, so I'm still learning. So listen to this.
All right.
I want you to notice the verse, Numbers 18. Do you have it on you? You have it?
Picked up. Yes.
Would you mind reading it for me, please? Verse 1 through 3.
Yes. Okay. So the Lord said to Aaron, you and your sons and your father's house with you shall bear iniquity connected with the sanctuary, and you and your sons with you shall bear iniquity connected with your priesthood. And
okay, that means that the sons of Aaron will be responsible for whatever happens. Okay, now read verse 2, please.
And with you bring your brothers also, the tribe of Levi, the tribe of your father, that they may join you and minister to you, while you and your sons with you are before the tent of the testimony.
Keep going.
They shall keep guard over you and over the whole tent, but shall not come near to the vessel of the sanctuary or to the altar, lest they and you die.
Okay, so even the Levites could not come near the holy vessels. And if something happens with the temple, who bears the guilt? According to the text, the priest. So there, read verse 1 again. It says, you and your sons and your father's house, the sons of Aaron, with you shall bear the iniquity connected with the sanctuary, and you and your sons shall bear the iniquity connected with the priesthood. That means that if you change the temple location, if you build something someplace else, to whom was given the rule, the authority to deal with holy things in the temple? The sons of who?
Levi.
The sons of Aaron.
Yes.
Because come back to me. I want to show you something. Okay. So you have Aaron. Then he has 4 sons. 2 of them died. Okay. Now you have Eleazar and Ithamar. From those 2 sons come 8 priestly courses. And then during the time of Salomon comes 24 priestly courses. That's not including the regular Levites. Okay.
Okay.
That's only the sons of Aaron. There were thousands. Okay. The high priesthood comes from the line of Eleazar, who was the grandfather of Pinchas, who was the father of Pinchas, who was the grandfather of Sadok, one of the related to Sadok. That's the line. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the Bible says that only the sons of Aaron, they are in charge of the sanctuary and the temple, and they bear the guilt. So what if, that's why Herod, he hired all of those priests to deal with anything within the temple, because he understood the legal jurisdiction they had. Herod could not change anything inside the temple at all. Okay, so now some guy coming from the street says, hey, the temple is in the city of David. Wait a minute, is he a son of Aaron? Because if he changes the temple and a priest let him do that, the priest bears the guilt, and then the priest dies, and that person too, according to biblical principle. I mean, people don't want to talk about this, but this is sinning against God. Why? Because God is the chief architect, and he's given instructions for the pattern, its location, and what to do and how to do it, who is in charge, and what is the service, and what is the function. Mm-hmm. And what have we done? Oh, the priesthood is no longer according to the Levites. The sacrifice is done away with. The feasts are according to our own calendars. And now the temple is in the city of David. Oh, wait a minute. Isn't that exactly what Ephraimites did? Isn't that exactly what Jeroboam did?
Yes.
And isn't that exactly what the Hebrew roots people are doing?
Well.
Oh, I'm Ephraim. Okay, so you changed the calendars, the temple, the priesthood, and now you changed the location. You did exactly what Jeroboam did, that caused the dispersion and caused people to be around the nations. We come back to the Hebrew roots to act like Jeroboam. And I make a call to all of you out there who are watching to return to the Torah, return to the context, and learn the temple, because it's to the house of Israel, so we can recognize our iniquities and be ashamed of our iniquities. So we learn about these things. So we leave things that don't belong to us alone. Okay? Thank you, man, for your time, bro. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed it.
If you would, thank
you for allowing me to share on this topic.
How to find your resources and where people can find any teachings or videos you've put out?
Yes, sir. Go to wisdomintorah.com, and I have a subscription page. It's $20 a month minimum, or $20 a year, and you have access to over 400 or 500 videos. And I also have a yeshiva in which I have courses, Ancient Near East, first century writings, and also on the temple locations. I have like 50 hours worth of information on the temple alone. And I hope that you would join. If you want to send me an email to wisdomintorah1@gmail.com. And if you want to go to Israel with me, November of next year, go to Wisdom and Torah Travel.com. I'm sorry, Wisdom and Torah Events.com. Wisdom in Torah Events, plural.com, and keep up with the latest news about our next trip to Israel. We're going to go to Rome, Greece, and we're going to go to Israel for a different type of tour. We're going to go to the footsteps of Paul, and then we're going to end up in the land of Israel to study there in the land of the King. Thank you so much, bro. I appreciate the opportunity, and I pray that it was a blessing and something new for people to consider the information.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Rico, for coming on. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Now You See TV and joining us. And until next time, shalom.